Hey, everybody. Can you hear me okay? All right. I'm going to draw for you. And how many notebook people do we have? Notebook people like to draw, like to take notes. Do you take notes on your iPad or your... Saul gave us this mandate. So the reason I asked about the notebooks is I invite you to draw along with me. It's not going to be anything more complicated than squares and circles and arrows, even though, kind of when they're done, sometimes they look like they're more involved in that. But Saul challenged us. He was very clear with the speakers, and I don't know if he's always this clear, or if I changed, or if Saul changed, but when we got to his house for the kind of the pre-meeting, he said, "This is not about you." He made it very clear. This is not about any of you. This is not about you. Don't make it about you. Get up on that stage, but don't make it about you. So I'm going to try something here, Saul. I'm going to try and make my talk about you, all of you. So this talk is for you, okay? It's going to be about you. So I'm going to put you in the middle here. You can draw your stick figures however you like, but here you are. And I think Saul sort of alluded to the fact that I hate structure. I resist structure. It's amazing I even get up on stages that actually show up. See, I have a little cheat sheet up here. I do these the night before. I kind of think through what I'm going to talk about. So see, there's you, and I've got a little cheat sheet over here in case I forget something I want to talk about. But let me ask you my first question for you here. What's happening? Are you glad you came to Biff? Yeah. Okay, so Biff is a good place. All right. When this thing about belonging has come up a lot, right? I want you to just think, and shout out if you want, but I'm really curious, when did you first have that feeling, like that, outside your family, I mean, that you found your tribe, that you found the place that you belong? Can you think about that? Maybe write it down. When did you first? Anyone want to shout something out? My hearing's pretty bad. Got to shout loud. Knowledge? College. Did you say college? Yeah, that's what it was for me. It was art. Well, it was actually art class for me. And it's like we talk about diversity. I think one of the things that I noticed when I went to art class is that, wow, this only thing we have in common is art. I think there's a stoner over there, and there's a jock. So we have these. I discovered though that these are my people. These creative people. They're like. I remember one guy who was like total stoner, and all he wanted to do was paint like horizon lines, and he made these paintings, and they were just lines. But we hit it off. We're still friends on Facebook after all these years, and now he's doing these crazy, like he's got an art studio where he's just doing really crazy stuff. I don't even want to tell you who he is because it's crazy stuff. But for me, it was art school. And I think the next question for us all is why? Why was it? What was it that gave you that feeling of belonging? Just sit with that for a second. For me, it is about, it was my tribe. And I got so much out of it in high school that I just convinced myself I had to do this for my life, and I had to be with these people. And I went to art school, and I found, yes, again, they are my people. These are my people, creative people who are essentially trying to, what do artists do? They start with nothing, and they create something. And that was when I actually learned that I was more social than I thought I was, when I started hanging out with artists. Like before I hung out with artists, I never could have a conversation. I was off reading books and stuff. Finally discovered I could actually have relationships when I discovered there are other artists out there. Raise your hand if you consider yourself an artist. I don't mean just by drawing. Creative soul. I think, It's not about me, so I'm going to shut up about that. The tribe is, what is a tribe? It's like, it's your family. It's a place where you belong. It's a community. It's people who have made an agreement and commitment to take care of each other. And the thing about art school, I realized that I've come across in business a lot is this thing about alignment. People talk about needing to be aligned. Nobody's aligned in art school. We're all doing our own thing. We're aligned about sort of culture. We're aligned about the way that we operate, but nobody's telling each other what to draw or what to paint or what to do. And I think that's beautiful. I think it's beautiful when you can work together. You think about it like Picasso and Braque. They were competitors. They were the best of friends. They were jealous of each other. It was a marriage. It was like a marriage. They would visit each other's studios every day to see what each other had done. And even though they were competing in some ways, they had an agreement. And this is an agreement I have with the people that I collaborate with, which is we steal. We steal from each other. Just take what you want. We're anything that we talk about, anything that we're working on collectively is collectively owned. And so Picasso, I think pretty famously said that he didn't think Cubism could have ever been accomplished by one person. It was, I think he described it as a team of mountain climbers roped together climbing a mountain. There's something really powerful about collaboration that doesn't require anyone to do anything that they don't want to do. There's something beautiful about people forming a community. Maybe you agree, I'm just telling you my opinion. Something beautiful about forming a community of people that can work together without having to order each other around. I had a chance to teach in a university for a brief period of time, and I loved it. I loved that part of it. There are a lot of things that I didn't like about it. We'll get there later. And finding your way, and how do you find your tribe? There's a guy who works at Explain right now, which is a company I founded, who was telling me this story. He was living in Silicon Valley, but he wasn't a digital guy. He was an industrial designer, and he had been working in kind of industrial applications and stuff, and he just really wanted to get into. Wasn't happening. He wanted to get into something more Silicon Valley. So he went to he said he's going to there was a 90-day coding boot camp. I was just starting up at the time. He went, and after 2 days of the boot camp, he's like, I don't want to code. I just realized I just don't want to do this at all. And but he liked the vibe. So he quit the class, but he kept coming. He just came around, he swept the floors, he just did help. He just thought he wanted to be around this and be helpful. And it turned out that this little organization became something called General Assembly, which is huge now. I don't know if they're publicly traded, but they're getting to that size. I think they might have been acquired. I don't remember exactly, but he became like a regional leader and for General Assembly out of just being there to support the people who were learning to code in the very first day. So he basically decided who his teachers were going to be, who his tribe was going to be. He just started hanging out there until, and soon before long, he had a job, and they hired him. So that's the kind of thing that I think is the kind of magic that I want to see more of in the world, where you find your mentor, and the tribes can be very powerful. Here's another example of a tribe. My brother, by the way, it's my brother's birthday today. Let's wish him a happy birthday for Rick. Happy birthday, Rick, wherever you are. Wow, what is that? Where did that come from? The changing? Hey, AV, I'll keep talking. They'll figure it out. So this story is my brother. He works at the FDA. And it happens that we're at my mom's house for Mother's Day. She lives in Arizona. And I wake up and I see him. We're staying in the same place. I see him and he's really distraught. He's on the phone. It's Sunday morning, Mother's Day, and something is going on that's really scary or bad. And I'm like, Rick, what is it? What is it? He's like, I can't talk right now. I got to deal with this crisis. Turned out the crisis was he works at the FDA. He had hired a guy who had been who'd been working in the lab with him. The guy was from Sri Lanka. This is an interesting tie into the immigration law and the border stuff. So this guy he had been asked to go back to Sri Lanka to get all this paperwork done so he could come back and officially start at the FDA in his full-time job. Anyway, it was Mother's Day, and this guy was being detained at the border on Mother's Day. He was going to be sent back to Sri Lanka. He had his whole family. He was coming for his job. He had done all the paperwork. He had copies of all the paperwork. He was going to be turned back because somehow the paperwork wasn't in the electronic system that the TSA had, or the Border Control. I was like, Rick, this is ridiculous. And we had been talking about the power of tribes and the power of networks. And he said, I said, do you mind if I put this out to the network, my network? And he said, Dave, it's not... You're never going to make anything happen. We had a congressman go there personally. A U.S. congressman went there, and the congressman couldn't change anything. I said, can I just try? He said, yeah, go ahead, try. So I pinged a few networks. And so these are little email lists and Facebook groups, small, let's call them purposeful tribes, purposeful networks. So I pinged actually 3 of them that I'm aware of. That I was members of, had been for a while, and just said, hey, here's a chance to do a good deed on Mother's Day. Here's the situation. Can anybody help? Within 10 minutes, we had an immigration lawyer giving him her phone number. She gave him directions to a website and like a stay order and all these kind of things. Within 20 minutes within 20 minutes or so, we had a couple of journalists, tweeting out about it, copying the Dulles Airport social media team. A Washington Post reporter saw the tweet, tweeted out his phone number publicly, said, call me, I want to talk to you about this. This sounds like a story. And lo and behold, the guy got released into the airport. I don't know how, we don't know exactly how it happened, but it's like my brother was like, oh my God, they let him in. Dave. And so Rick's lesson, here was Rick's lesson that I thought was really interesting. He said, my life is all about the power of insiders. I never considered that the power from outside could make such a difference. One thing I want to add just as a note, and this is more about good network gardening than it is about the particular story. This problem was solved. I had to go back to all those networks and tell them to stand down. Because once you activate a network, it could keep going and going. And also, people want feedback that they did good. So I wrote a little story. I asked Rick if his employee would care to make a comment. We got a nice quote from him. I wrote a little note, and I sent it back out to the network. I mean, does anyone here get that note? Was anyone here on that? Okay, nobody here. Anyway, it was powerful. Hey, guess what? This is what you did on Mother's Day. Thank you. You changed someone's life today. That's how powerful a tribe can be, and it's amazing. The thing about it though is you can't start building it the day you need it. Rick didn't have that network because he hadn't been working on building relationships. In fact, 10 years ago when I said maybe you should start a blog, his reply was, I get no points in my world for doing anything with the public. He's a research scientist, right? He's doing health stuff. But he gets no points in his world. There are no points in that world, no credits for communicating with the public. You get points for getting in Nature or Science, getting published. Maybe, there's no points for communicating with the public. And now after this episode, he's like, help me start a blog. How do I get a domain? It's starting to dawn on him that this is a world of tremendous, wealth and power. And at the end of the day, that is the source of all wealth in networks, in people and in nature. Going back to the Ice Age, if Ben is around still, I love that talk. Hunting and gathering, that's what we have always done. Somehow in this industrial period, we've got the idea that we need jobs. We need other people to create jobs for us. I don't believe that we do. I don't believe anywhere there's a problem, there's a job. And everyone has the power to create their own job and create their own customer and make things happen. And we need them to know that. I'm one of these people who has done well in life. I'm trying to turn around and figure out how to take the real wealth that I've developed, which is the network, the people, the connections. I'm trying to find a way to open that up and make that more accessible to people. So we formed a tribe. We called it the School of the Possible. I have a friend who told me, who I admire, who said that my wife says I'm a possibilitarian. And I said, that's a beautiful word, possibilitarian. I haven't heard that before. Can I use that? Can we form a possibilitarian tribe? And he said, yeah, sure. And his wife's gone in with it too, so she's good. And he's not with us today, but he is in spirit. So we started the School of the Possible. What is it? It's simply a tribe. It's stone soup. It's just a pot with a stone in it, and we're asking everybody to bring what they want or how they can participate. We have a little private Facebook group where we're figuring it out, but the bottom line is people helping people, working to be self-sustaining, working to do our own creative work, whatever that might be, or in whatever domain that might be, but to support each other. And I'll give you one last thing from my brother. He told me about how life may be formed. Science, so you don't ever know for sure. But he said, did you know, Dave, that the human body is composed, the composition of the average cell in the human body is almost identical to that of seawater? And that complexity is unlikely to be an accident. It's so complex that it's very unlikely that would be accidental. And that all that needs to happen for life to form is that you form a little membrane around a little bit of seawater, and you start to create what they call a electrochemical gradient, and you start to actually have life. They haven't figured out how to do this yet, unless Andrew Hessel has some ideas, but I don't know that they've actually been able to create cells yet. I may be wrong. But this is what we did for the school. I always wanted to start an art school of my own, and I realized finally we don't have to have a building. We just have to have the people. Socrates didn't need a building. He just sat on the steps of the courthouse, right? So we started a school. It's called the School of the Possible. You're welcome. You're all welcome to join. It only has 2 rules. You have to believe that anything is possible, and you have to be willing to test your ideas. Those are the only rules. And what we found is that those rules are enough of a membrane to keep out all the toxicity, all the evil, all the negativity. It's just not interesting to go into a place where you have to agree that everything's possible and everything has to be tested. It's hard to troll that. So this is our group. I invite you to join us. We're figuring it out. It's just a Facebook group right now. It's called the School of the Possible. We're supporting each other. Can I ask the possibilitarians in the room just to stand up so just we can see how many of us are here? Identify yourselves. Look at that. We're surrounded. All right. So join us. Join us. Let's carry the BIF thing forward. Final announcement, Saul is agreed to be the advisor on the advisory board. We're thrilled about that, and we want to be thankful to Saul and invite everyone to join us in the innovation junkie, community, purpose-driven, let's get shit done place. That's it, thanks. That's all I have.